The month of November, when the Church commemorates all those who have departed from this life, but have not yet attained the joys of heaven. One of the most important ways to remember a loved one who has passed away is to offer up a prayer for them. As we approach November, EWTN Vatican Bureau's Hannah Brockhaus interviewed Father Paul O'Callaghan on the mysteries of Purgatory and the importance of praying for the faithful departed.
Father Paul O'Callaghan, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Can you tell me why Catholics pray for the dead?
I suppose it's one of the things that we do as Christians, as Catholics, with great naturalness. When somebody dies, we say, I prayed for you, I prayed for your family, I prayed for the deceased. And it's good to think how beautiful that is, because what it means is that the person who has died, who is, I might say, on the other side of life with God, can be helped by our prayers.
Can you explain more about what Purgatory is and the Church's teaching around it?
Teaching on Purgatory is one of the greatest signs of God's mercy, because basically it's saying to people, look, you know, we all will come to the end of our lives at some stage, and we all look back with regret and a certain amount of fear that we haven't been as faithful as we should have been. And at the same time, we are aware and we can see in other people's lives that they haven't lived bad lives, that they're good people, that they did their duties, they looked after their families, they did all the different things they had to do. But at the same time, they were aware of their defects and it's a beautiful thing that God is sufficiently, as it were, realistic about our fallen human condition, that He provides us with the opportunity of being definitively purified after death.
You spoke about the basis of praying for the dead being found in the Old Testament. Can you trace a little bit for us the history of the Church's doctrine on purgatory?
From the earliest times, Christians prayed for the dead. It was a very constant practice among Christians. In fact, there's a 6th century author, Saint Isidore of Seville, who says that from the apostolic times, already from the apostolic times, Christians were praying for the dead. And so it was something that was there from the very beginning. But it is interesting, I've often found it interesting that the Catholic Church didn't make any proclamation on the existence of purgatory or definition of what purgatory was until the Middle Ages. And there are several councils which speak of this, Fourth Lateran and Florence. And you would sort of say, well, does that mean that the Catholic Church invented the doctrine of purgatory, which is sometimes the accusation that's made? And I would see it in another way. I would see it in another light. I would see it that precisely because Christians accepted prayer for the dead, they accepted the existence of purgatory. But since the issue hadn't been, as it were, denied, there was no need to specify anymore. In that sense, the Church, when it teaches according to circumstances and according to needs. The Church has to speak when things have to be said. But when things don't have to be said and they're just sort of taken for granted by people, well, then you just get on with the business of living. So for that reason, you can see that even though the Fathers of the Church, many of them, Augustine, Gregory the Great, several others, they spoke about prayer for the dead, and they spoke about the doctrine of purgatory in different ways, many different ways. It wasn't actually defined by the Church until the Middle Ages.
What do our prayers for the dead or for the souls in purgatory do? What is their aim?
The fact is that with our sins, not only do we offend God and we do damage to ourselves, but also we do damage to other people. The solidarity that is present with the sinful actions of different kinds. In other words, whenever we misbehave, we do damage to other people. Now, the purpose of the prayer of other people is precisely to, you might say, in solidarity with other people, they help us overcome what's called technically the temporal punishment due to sin. In other words, like as it were, the moral debt that we have accumulated during our lives. And it's something that we're not asked to do purely and exclusively on our own. We're given a hand in doing so by other Christians. And in that sense, you could say purgatory is not an individualistic doctrine where I sort of resolve and sort out my particular personal problems and sins and faults. It's something that the whole church does together. And we feel for one another a great sense of solidarity, you know? And as we're praying for the dead, as we're praying for them, we're kind of saying to ourselves, well, I hope somebody will pray for me when also I'm in the same situation. No? And in that sense, together we solve our problems.
Thank you so much, Father, for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.